On the crisp morning of April 12th, 1987, in a small, picturesque town nestled in the heart of New England, a horrific discovery unraveled a web of deceit and murder. Thomas Ridgeway, a 42-year-old landscaper, known for his meticulous work and friendly demeanor, was arrested for a string of murders that left the community in disbelief. Beneath the surface of his seemingly ordinary life lay dark secrets that shocked even the most hardened investigators. Thomas was a respected figure in the community. He had a thriving landscaping business, often hired by the wealthiest homeowners in the area to transform their gardens into works of art. With his rugged good looks and polite manners, Thomas was well liked by clients and neighbors alike. His wife, Margaret, and their two children, 10-year-old Sarah and 8-year-old Jacob, were often seen as the perfect family. But behind the facade, trouble was brewing. On April 11th, a neighbor named Helen Perkins noticed something unusual. Thomas had been digging in her backyard, claiming he needed to inspect the soil as part of a landscaping project. Helen, a widow in her late 60s, trusted Thomas and thought little of it at the time. But the next morning, her dog began furiously digging in the same spot. Curious, Helen decided to investigate and was horrified to discover what appeared to be human remains. Police were called to the scene, and their investigation quickly escalated. The remains were identified as belonging to Margaret Ridgeway and the two Ridgeway children. The discovery sent shockwaves through the town. As detectives delved deeper, they uncovered a chilling pattern that would ultimately link Thomas to multiple murders. Thomas was taken into custody that evening. Under intense interrogation, he initially denied any involvement. However, evidence began to mount against him. A search of his property revealed bloody clothing and personal items belonging to his family, as well as a detailed journal that chronicled his crimes. The entries painted a disturbing picture of a man consumed by jealousy, resentment, and an insatiable desire for control. The journal revealed that Thomas had discovered Margaret was having an affair with one of his clients, a wealthy businessman named Edward Langston. The affair had been going on for months, and Margaret had planned to leave Thomas, taking the children with her. Thomas, unable to bear the thought of losing his family and his reputation, decided to take matters into his own hands. On the night of April 9th, Thomas confronted Margaret in their home. The argument quickly escalated, and in a fit of rage, he struck her with a heavy garden tool. Realizing what he had done, Thomas decided he couldn't leave any witnesses. He smothered Sarah and Jacob while they slept, ensuring there would be no one left to tell the truth. But Thomas's crimes didn't end there. Investigators discovered that he had been burying bodies in the yards of his clients for years. These victims were identified as individuals who had either crossed Thomas in business dealings or were romantically involved with Margaret. Using his landscaping work as a cover, Thomas would dig graves on the properties he maintained, hiding his crimes in plain sight. One of the most shocking revelations came when detectives uncovered the remains of Edward Langston in the backyard of a sprawling estate Thomas had worked on months earlier. Edward had been reported missing, and his disappearance had remained a mystery until now. The connection between Edward's death and Margaret's affair solidified the motive behind Thomas's actions. The trial of Thomas Ridgeway was one of the most sensational cases the town had ever seen. The courtroom was packed every day as gruesome details of his crimes were revealed. Prosecutors painted a picture of a manipulative and cold-blooded killer who had used his charm and profession to conceal his heinous acts. The defense attempted to argue that Thomas's actions were the result of a mental breakdown, citing the pressures of his failing marriage and financial struggles. The turning point in the trial came when Helen Perkins testified about the day she found the bodies in her yard. Her emotional account, coupled with the overwhelming forensic evidence, left little doubt in the minds of the jury. After weeks of deliberation, Thomas was found guilty on all counts of murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The aftermath of Thomas Ridgway's crimes left a lasting scar on the community. Neighbors who had once admired his work now looked at their perfectly manicured lawns with unease, wondering if dark secrets lay buried beneath them. The families of his victims struggled to come to terms with their loss, haunted by the knowledge that their loved ones' final resting places had been desecrated. In prison, Thomas remained unrepentant. He refused to grant interviews or provide any further insight into his motives. Psychologists who studied the case described him as a narcissist who derived satisfaction from the control he exerted over his victims, even in death. His journal entries revealed a chilling lack of remorse, with detailed accounts of how he selected his victims and carried out his crimes. The case of Thomas Ridgway continues to be studied by criminologists and true crime enthusiasts. It serves as a grim reminder of how easily evil can hide behind a veneer of normalcy. The community, while forever changed, has worked to heal from the trauma, planting flowers and trees in the yards where Thomas had buried his victims as a symbol of hope and renewal. To this day, the story of the landscaper-turned-serial killer remains one of the most chilling tales of betrayal and murder. It is a cautionary tale about trust, deception, and the darkness that can lurk beneath even the most idyllic surfaces. The question that haunts those who knew him is this: how many more victims might there have been if Helen Perkins's dog hadn't started digging that fateful morning?